Milton's Adventure, a Milton story, narrated by Ed Pawncroft. Chapter 3, Rodworld and the Wheel of Fortitude. Milton came to suddenly. Everything around him was completely black. For a moment, Milton believed that the magic of space transmutation had caused him to go blind. He thrashed about in panic, causing some miscellaneous objects next to him to topple with a loud crash. Milton froze, his entire body coated in a film of sweat. He could hear footsteps coming towards him, but he could not make out anything in the darkness. A door in front of him opened suddenly with a creak. "What's going on in here?" queried an anonymous voice. As Milton's eyes adjusted to the light, he could see that the voice belonged to a portly old woman, with wiry black hair and a faintly terrified expression. "What are you doing in my pantry?" shrieked the old lady, seizing a broomstick for defence. Milton fumbled around among what he could now identify as sacks of flax and barley. "Where am I? Is this another world?" The wrinkled lady swatted at Milton with the broom. "Get out! Get out of my house!" Milton fell back, causing more shelved spices and dry goods to fall and break. A cask containing many powdered mushrooms upended and covered Milton in chalky white dust. "I'm not here to do any harm! I've got to kill a demon!" "There are no demons here! Get out!" cried the old lady, brandishing the broom in Milton's face. Milton held up a 24-inch wooden platter in defence. "Bird, help me! I think I've been teleported to the wrong place!" The bird flew from its concealment up Milton's sleeve.
"No, master, I must disagree. This is the place you are meant to be."
Milton blocked a swipe from the broom. "Then why is this old hag trying to kill me?" The bird swooped up and shot a beam of white energy into the old woman's face. Her expression quickly changed from anger to bewilderment, and she toppled backwards, completely unconscious.
"Put to sleep the crone has been. For 30 minutes she shall dream."
"Wow, you really didn't need to do that, but thanks, I guess." Milton stepped out from the pantry and took a look at his surroundings. He was in a humble yet cluttered abode, with many strange wooden ornaments and sculptures arranged in odd ways about the room. Milton noted a particularly intriguing carved bust of a bearded fella sporting a tremendous pair of bifocals. "Yeah, just from the smell alone I can tell we're not on planet Earth," said Milton, referring to the overpowering woody stench. "Everything is made up from wood. Look, even this mirror looks to be polished mahogany." Milton stopped in front of the mirror to adjust his Union Jack cap. "Looking good." The high-pitched falsetto of the bird called out,
"Master Milton, over here! The drop from here is oh so sheer!"
Milton scurried in the direction of the bird's voice and through a small set of birchwood doors, where he came to a small balcony. "Holy crap!" gasped Milton, gazing out over the immense precipice before him. He looked around to see that the house was balanced precariously on spindly wooden rods that barely seemed to be able to hold any weight. In the valley around there were many hundreds more houses of the same structure, which peppered the landscape and all up the sides of the cliffs. Milton tested how long it would take a wad of gob to drop to the bottom of the chasm. "Now that's pretty far down," noted Milton, as the loogie disappeared into the fog below. "Where are we? This place is mental." Milton gazed around at the little wooden buildings and walkways that coiled around each other and all up the cliff face.
"Master Milton, I declare, for the demon's arrival we must prepare."
Milton suddenly remembered the task at hand. "Oh yes, of course." The bird rose up in the air and scanned the surroundings with some kind of white sonar beam.
4 hours and a half we do have until the wheel completes its path."
"You mean the Wheel of Fortitude's just gonna roll through and destroy everything? That could be disastrous in a place like here. Everything's held up on stilts. We better go and wake that old hag up so we can get some more information." Milton returned inside to the old lady who was out stone cold, drooling on the floorboards. "Hey, old lady, wake up!" tried Milton, gently slapping the hag's cheek a few times. The bird chimed in.
"Master Milton, I must repeat, for half an hour the crone shall sleep."
"Oh," responded Milton, before emptying the contents of a nearby vase onto the unconscious old lady. "No, you're right. It's not going to work. Okay, I may as well wait until she wakes up. I don't want to go stepping out into this brand new world completely oblivious." Milton took off his backpack and rummaged around for a bit, pulling out a rolled up and tattered copy of the Beano to pass time. This was the issue where Dennis and Nasher got into a particularly nasty scrape with the Beano Town gravedigger. but also included one of Milton's favourite strips where Ivy the Terrible steals a hilariously long sausage from the High Street butcher to great comedic effect. Milton chuckled aloud to himself for a while, until suddenly realising that he needed the toilet considerably. All this dimensional travel had really done a number on his colon. Milton patrolled the home until he located the water closet, where he seated himself in the usual position and unrolled the beano once more to continue a strip about the numbskulls controlling the mind of a polar bear. However, before Milton could do so much as unclench his rectum, some noises came from the front room. The old lady had finally begun to stir. Milton sighed and bagged his beano. His big poo would have to wait until later. Milton returned to the living room and, to avoid any further complications, straddled the old woman, pinning her arms against the floorboards. "Ooh, what's going on?" mumbled the crone. "Look at me. My name is Milton. I don't want to hurt you, but you're in grave danger." The crone shrieked, attempting to alert a nearby presence, but Milton silenced her with his hand over her mouth. "Listen, we're not going to get anywhere like that. Tell me where we are, and maybe I'll let you go." The old woman nodded, and Milton removed his sweaty palm from her chapped lips. "Rodworld!" Milton looked sceptical. "Rodworld? So this is just like Earth, but all the houses are on rods?" The old woman responded grumpily. "I don't know what you're talking about, you filthy trespasser. I've half a mind to tell my husband. He's foreman on the Board of Suspension, don't you know?" Milton looked up at the oaken bust of the bearded bifocal gent that the old woman was indicating. "Yes, of course that's who that is. Look, I mean you no harm. I just wanted to know a little bit about the place before I slay the giant wheel that's headed to completely destroy this entire village." The old woman's eyes narrowed tenfold. "You talk of the wheel? You truly must be insane." "What?" questioned Milton. The old woman cackled, exposing a row of eroded wooden dentures. "The wheel is but myth. Old hokum spread around by the neighbouring villages to make us leave." The hag leaned in so close that Milton could smell the tapioca pudding on her breath. "They want our ore, you see. Nothing else like what we got here in Rodworld." "Well, regardless, we only have..." Milton checked one of the big clocks that adorned the walls. "Oh God, 3.5 hours before the wheel hits!" shrieked the crone. "You sound just like young Bobe, always plotting out this and that. Oh, the wheel's on due course to hit and so forth. Bilge! All of it bilge!" Milton queried. "Young who?" The haggard woman responded. "None of your business. I've told you enough, foul outlander." Milton grabbed another vase from a birchwood nightstand and dashed the contents onto the hag's face. "Tell me now, or prepare to suffer great consequences." Okay, cried the crone. "It's Bobe, my nephew, young Bobe." Milton splashed a little bit more vase water onto the old lady for effect. "Where can I find this young Bobe?" The hag spluttered through a mouthful of rhododendrons. "Up on the hill by the paddies. He tends to his farm and keeps away from us village folk." Milton decided that he had heard enough and began to leave, dismounting the old lady, who scowled at him angrily. As he made his way out, he noticed the old woman reaching for a device through the corner of his eye. Before Milton could react, she was already shrieking into the device, "Come quick! There's an intruder in my house!" Milton piled across the room and into the old woman, tackling her into a wardrobe and smashing her head into the hardwood, instantly knocking her unconscious again. He hastily picked up the audio-receptive implement and continued the call. "Hello? Yes, no, there's no problem here. You don't need to come back anymore, thanks, bye." Milton slammed the device down into the small ovular socket it had come from, and scrambled to his feet. "Oh shit! Oh fuck! Okay." The bird called out from Milton's shoulder.
"Master, we must make a quick exit. We have to leave here undetected."
Milton quickly followed the bird to a kitchen area, where it indicated he should climb over the sink and escape through the open window. Milton did so, and came out onto a much smaller terrace on the back of the house. Below him was the sheer drop to the bottom of the chasm, and to the side, a little walkway that led around the side of the house, and up onto the adjacent cliffs. "Oh fuck! Oh, I can't do this, it's too scary," whined Milton, clinging onto the side of the wooden wall. A loud siren sounded in the distance.
"Master, you must make a move! The city guard are onto you!"
Milton sprang into action again, shimming quickly along the side of the wall, trying hard not to look down into the sheer drop below. After 10 minutes of steadily edging around the backs of the suspended buildings, Milton made it to the cliff face, where a narrow rickety walkway led up the side of the cliff. "Oh no, I can't do this." moaned Milton again, letting out a nervous fart. I'll poo myself.
You can't give up now, Master. Look around. The city guard will have you found.
Milton turned briefly to see some far-off figures mounted upon enormous elongated wooden stilts, making their way through the valley in search for the wanted trespasser. Okay, it's time to go, 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 announced Milton, removing a red paisley bandana from his backpack and donning it quickly. He then began to sprint up the wooden staircase, not even bothering to use the handrail as directed. Milton made it up to the top, unsure of whether the guards had seen him or not. It was much colder up here, but afforded Milton a much better view of the landscape. Not daring to poke his head into the valley of Rodworld for fear of being seen, Milton scanned the horizon in front. Ripe green pastures as far as the eye could see, with a light breezy mist in the air. Milton stuck to the small mud path that lay before him, which seemed to lead towards a mill of some kind on a hillock ahead. I'm just betting that this has to be the old hag's nephew's farm or something, deduced Milton, pacing quickly through the wet grass. I need to get there soon too, because this poo isn't going to hold itself in for much longer. The bird offered an update on the mission.
Master, but 3 small hours remain until the wheel passes this terrain.
Oh God, I knew I shouldn't have wasted all my time doing Billy Whizz's maze at the back of the Beano.
After a light jog up to the mill, a panting, sweaty Milton knocked on the large beechwood door. A few seconds' wait graced him with no answer, so he banged again. Come on, open up! I've to use your lavatory! Still no answer. Milton tried to smash the door open, but it was unexpectedly strong, and was obviously locked fastidiously. Open the goddamn door! What's a man to have to do to take a poo around here? The only response Milton got was the rainy breeze gently rustling the grass around him.
Ooh, this is not good at all. How am I supposed to save this place from the big wheel if I've got brown running all down my legs?
As Milton said this, a slat in the door opened quickly. A muffled voice called from within. What do you know of the wheel? Milton jumped back in surprise, emitting a quick fart. Oh, you are in!
Nice of you to respond when I so desperately asked to use your toilet!
The slat closed abruptly. Wait! No, I didn't mean that. Come back! Milton heard no footsteps leading away from the door, and so continued, shifting his weight between his feet to keep the poo at bay.
I know that the Wheel of Fortitude is this massive demonic wheel thing that's going to roll through here and destroy everything in about 3 hours' time,
the voice responded from behind the door. Then we have less time than I thought. After the shifting of a few locks, the beechwood door swung open, revealing a young man in his 20s, with a scruffy beard and greasy black hair. He wore a stained Hessian tunic and a big belt with many pockets and pouches attached. Well met, traveller, I'm, Bobe Bolgari. It is relieving to finally meet another who understands my—
Milton,
responded Milton, pushing past Bobe and into the mill.
My name's Milton, and that's great. Hey, listen, can I use your toilet now that we know where we stand? I really don't like working on a full bowel.
Bobe scratched his head. By all means, the outhouse is out back, past the corral, Milton moaned.
Outhouse? Oh, man!
Milton walked briskly through the cluttered mill and straight towards the cedar-dabbled doors at the back, where he came back out onto the grasslands. Not wishing to lose any speed, Milton trudged forth. By now, a wet rain had started up.
This is just the same as Dartmoor. You'd have thought this other dimension or planet or whatever would actually be something different, but no.
Milton opened up a gate and walked through it, shielding his face from the deluge.
This is dumb. Can't fucking believe I'm doing this. Just want to go home and play Minecraft.
Milton was interrupted from his grumbling suddenly as his hoodie became snagged on something.
For God's sake!
Cried Milton, turning to see that what he was caught on was the horn of a great beast. Milton was speechless, having never seen the like of this before. He did everything within his power to stop his bowels from loosening there and then.
Bah, what are you?
The beast brayed and exuded a generous amount of steam from its downturned snout. Milton took this as a sign of aggravation and turned to flee, slipping as he did so and falling face down in the wet muck. "Hold up there, gal!" cried Bobe, approaching in a large raincoat and grabbing the great beast by its reins. He helped Milton to his feet, who stared wide-eyed at the huge creature. "Don't worry, traveller, she wouldn't hurt a flea." Bobe tenderly stroked the mane of the beast. "Her name's Theme. Got her a couple of years back at the market. She's a rare beauty. One of a kind, I hear." "Yeah, I bet," said Milton, eyeing the beast up and down as it dug at the ground with its big cloven hooves. "Anyway, I've a pot of herb tea on the boil. Meet me back inside once you've done with your business," said Bobe. "The outhouse is over yonder."
"Great, thanks,"
responded Milton, shakily continuing to the little shack at the edge of the paddock. After a lengthy debacle with keeping the outhouse door shut and the removal of a colossal arachnid from the premises, Milton had suitably emptied himself, and made his way back to the mill, where he sat down at a sprawling pinewood table with Bobe to discuss matters relating to the wheel. Bobe cleared his throat and sipped at his beaker of herbal tea. "Now I'm sure you can imagine my surprise when I hear that you know of the wheel, traveller, as you must know that it relates to my field of study somewhat." Milton looked around the mill. Many hundreds of paper sheets were pinned up all around, depicting detailed drawings and diagrams of various wheels, as well as charts and graphs in characters Milton did not recognise. "Sure looks like it." Bobe leaned in. "So I must ask you, what do you know of the wheel? I'm sure you're aware of the denial my fellow people live in. They act like the wheel does not exist, citing it as a conspiracy created by our neighbouring citadels." Milton sipped hard on his tea and nodded. "So I've heard. Well, it may excite you to learn that I have been sent here on a mission explicitly to destroy said wheel, for it is in fact one of 55 demons sent to destroy the entire cosmos." Milton showed Bobe his impressive list of demons. Bobe responded with great intrigue. "Fascinating. So you're not of this world? I mean, indeed, I had an inkling when I laid eyes on your footwear. Definitely of some otherworldly origin." Milton looked down at his burgundy airwalks. "Yeah, completely. Listen, so the thing is, you've got to help me get back into the village so we can convince the townsfolk to vacate or something." Bobe chuckled. "Oh, no easy task. I'm somewhat of an outcast myself. Despite being nephew of the foreman on the board of suspension, they do not take kindly to me, I'm afraid." Milton responded disappointedly. "What, man? What are we going to do then?" "Fear not. For in my arduous research, I have prepared many strategies, and have solid proof of the wheel's existence. Come, follow me." Bobe beckoned Milton to a window on the east side of the mill, which afforded a view across the rolling hills. "Look, many of our neighbouring villages lie in ruin, for they have succumbed to the path of the wheel." Milton squinted into the distance, and sure enough, he could see the devastated remains of various other settlements. "This has allowed me to understand the wheel's path." Bobe pulled up a scroll festooned with markings and lines. "The wheel operates in circulating oscillations around us. I have estimated that a full revolution of the globe we are on takes approximately a day, or 15 hours, which speaks volumes about the wheel's own mass and dimensions." Milton nodded to look like he understood. "Yep. On the 1st of this week, the wheel laid waste to the hamlet Stiltland in the farthest valley. By the 2nd, it had destroyed Strutsville, and by the 3rd, Pole Place was in ruin. I correctly predicted the destruction of the nearest settlement, Beamtown, yesterday afternoon, and now, as my charts suggest, our very own Rodworld will be reduced to rubble in..." Bobe checked a small pocket watch on his wrist. 2 hours and 20! "Bloody hell! That must have been a long poo!" "We need to leave now, then," announced Milton, stamping his feet for effect. "An apt decision. I have seen this day coming for a while now, and have planned the plea to my uncle in great detail. We shall ride themed down to Town Hall, and make our case there." Bobe hurried about putting various of his workings and notepads into a small knapsack. Milton recalled what had happened in the valley. "I'm going to need some kind of disguise. The gods are on to me because of what he did to this old woman," young Bobe replied. "A disguise? I understand. Old women can often be a handful. My own aunt can be harsh at times, but alas, she remains close to my heart." Milton swallowed nervously. Makes sense. "You may find this a suitable disguise," said Bobe, offering up a large-brimmed farm hat, which featured a hanging veil that obstructed the face. "I use this on days when the sun beats down, and I don't fancy getting my face burnt out on the paddies." "Yeah, cool story, bro," replied Milton, swapping out his Union Jack cap and bandana for the broad-brimmed straw behemoth. Not wishing to waste any more time, Milton and Bobe made their way out back to the corral to fetch Theen. "She's a fast beast. We'll be in the valley in no time," said Bobe confidently. "With that many legs, I'll bet," wagered Milton. The pair straddled the great creature, Milton positioning himself behind its secondary hump, while Bobe adjusted its leather harness and saddle. Milton noted the beast's small wings, which had remained tucked away to its sides until now. "Bobe, this thing has wings. Surely we can just fly there." Bobe responded stoically. "Alas, I have not been able to prompt her to fly as of yet. The salesman I bought her off claimed it was a feat that had never been achieved." "Oh," responded Milton. "Bit of a waste of money, then." "Hey-ho!" rallied Bobe, causing Theen to whinny and rear up on 4 of its legs. In a flash, the beast had cleared the corral fence and was off down the mud path to the valley. "We'll take a shortcut across the Big Beam Bridge," shouted Bobe over the wind. He steered Theen to the right, and she galloped across the grassland and down over the cliffside at an impressive 80-degree angle. The majestic bridge came into view, entirely comprised of thousands of wooden sticks and struts. Milton pulled down on his farmer's hat, not only to keep the strong winds from sweeping it off, but for fear of being seen by the city guards, who had set up a patrol gate at one end of the bridge. Bobe slowed Thien down to a canter as they came to the barricade. One of the guards on stilts approached, wielding a long plywood baton.
"Halt at once, Bolgari! We saw and heard your creature a mile off. What makes you think that we are to let an outcast like you back in the Rodworld?"
Bobe took down his hood. "Please, you must understand me. This is an emergency. The fate of Rodworld is at stake." The guard laughed.
"Ha! Let me guess, the wheel is coming to destroy us all, and we have to let you in for you to save everyone. Pathetic."
Bobe slouched and hung his head, defeated. The guard clocked Milton and moved around to get a better look.
Well, what's we have here? You don't have any friends, Bobe. Who's this funny-looking farmhand here?"
Milton replied angrily. "Actually, the name's Maltine, and I've been living with Bobe and helping out with the rice for about a while now, so mind your own business." The guard narrowed his eyes.
Well, the thing is, boys, I'd love to let you through, but we've got a lockdown. There's a killer on the loose, you see. Nearly murdered some old hag, but thankfully she survived the attack."
Milton looked nervously at Bobe's reaction to this, but he didn't seem to hear the man, and was more preoccupied with sadly stroking Thien's mane. Milton continued.
"The thing about that is that you've got to let us in. We only have 2 hours until the wheel hits your city."
The guard laughed again.
"You conspirators are all the same with your crazy notions."
The guard waved his baton.
"Be gone from here, or I shall arrest you on the spot."
"All right, fine. But don't expect me to save you when the wheel clears this place to rubble." Milton whispered to Bobe as he led Thien away from the gate.
"We've got to jump over it, and just get there."
Bobe replied anxiously. "But the guards will have us hung by sundown." Bobe indicated a line of 30-foot-tall gallows up on the opposite cliff top. "Rodworld does not take crime lightly." Milton grasped Bobe's shoulder. "Listen to me, Bobe. Where I come from, we have a phrase for times like this. It's called, just do it." Bobe wiped rain from his face. "Okay. Very well." Before the guards had noticed a thing, Bobe had rallied Thien into a gallop. Before reaching the barricade, her powerful rear haunches reeled back and propelled them into the air, clearing the barricade with ease. The guards called out from below, but could not be heard over the loud wind. "Whoa! This thing is crazy!" Bobe grasped the reins tightly and directed the beast to the left in midair, where it landed to gallop across the suspended boardwalk. Milton could see the frightened faces of many village folk through their windows, who had never before laid eyes on such a sight. "The town hall is in the centre of the valley, not far from here at all," cried Bobe. Though they moved at unfathomable speeds, Milton was able to distinguish some surroundings, namely an immense mine on the left, where towering wooden cranes lifted precious metals from a huge pit, and some kind of lumber storage to the right, housing many thousands of sawn logs of varying colour and thickness. After mere minutes of riding across the suspended wooden streets, Bobe slowed down the beast at the steps to a huge building that seemed to be entirely carved from one big tree. Upon its entirely flat roof was erected a grand flag, depicting 4 big sticks. Milton and Bobe alighted Thien and tied her to one of the many nearby posts. "We're here, and in good time." Bobe checked his pocket watch. 1 hour and 54 minutes remain." The duo ascended the wooden steps before them, and came to the most impressive cedar wood doors yet, with carvings depicting scenes Milton could only wish he had time to look at. The interior was decorated similarly, with copious amounts of wood on every surface. Milton followed Bobe up to a polished hardwood desk in the centre of the room, where a young woman sat sharpening a long pencil. Bobe cleared his throat. "Excuse me, I'd like to speak to the foreman, if that's okay." The girl looked up in surprise. "Oh, Bobe, it's you." She checked a chart behind the desk. "I'm afraid the foreman is engaged in a meeting presently. He will be available in 2 hours. Bobe thanked the young woman and turned away. Milton grabbed him by the shoulder and hissed, "What are you doing? Don't just walk away! Remember the saying!" Bobe responded shamefully, "I just can't do it, Milton. Oh, I simply don't have a way with words like you do." Milton frowned. "Oh, for goodness sake! You remind me of Craig. Look, just stand back and let me do the talking. I can talk my way out of anything." Milton approached the receptionist, perching on the edge of the desk. "So, the foreman's not free, huh? Would there be any way we could, I don't know, perhaps make him free?" The receptionist shook her head. "I'm afraid I don't understand." Milton leaned closer. "Oh, come on. You know what I'm getting at. Let us in and there might be something good in it for you, huh?" The young woman blushed. But before Milton could conjure any more of his trademark charm, a spruce wood door on the left swung open.
Bolgari! Courageous of you to show your face in these parts again.
Milton looked up to see a hulking elderly bloke clad in overalls. He identified the man's face as the same seen on the bust in the old woman's house, with enormous circular bifocals and a voluminous grey beard. As the fella strode over in his great brown boots, Milton noticed that one of his legs was missing and had been replaced with a thick wooden rod. The foreman paced until he stood looming over Bobe.
I thought I heard your voice through the walls. Sound carries very easily through Timberden, you know. Now with me, inside.
The foreman turned and shot a meaty finger in Milton's direction.
And you blonde rapscallion, away from my receptionist. She has no business with a runt such as yourself. You're coming too.
Inside his office cabin, the foreman indicated for the boys to be seated on 2 diminutive stools in front of his own much larger desk. The foreman's face loomed over them with gritted teeth.
I'm having a bad enough day as it is. First of all, the wet weather's made it impossible for my men to work. Then I get word that my wife's been attacked by some crazed killer up in the valley. And now, my disgraced nephew shows up at my office with this outsider.
Milton cut in. The name's Maltine, actually. Travelling farmhand for hire around these parts. Milton allowed himself to engage full ad-lib mode. I happen to be from a neighbouring town. Stick City, to the east of here. The foreman glared at Milton with eyes that looked as though they were about to burst out of their sockets at any second.
Stick City? There is no such place.
Bobe attempted to calm the enraged man. Uncle, please, heed the man. He speaks great truths. Milton swallowed and continued. So, I met with your wonderful nephew, Bobe. We spoke of many things, but most of all, the Wheel of Fortitude. Milton observed as a vein nearly burst in the foreman's forehead, but continued before he could retort. Now, I know of the wheel's existence firsthand. Milton paused to reflect, summoning a stray tear that slid down his cheek. It killed my family. My loving wife Cindy and my 2 sons, Homer and Bart. Bobe shot Milton a glance, pleading for him to get back on topic. Now you've heard my story, you must consider the lives of your own people. If we act now, we can still put a stop to the wheel's imminent path of destruction. Bobe joined in. Uncle, we have but 1 hour and a half until the wheel comes, and I swear of it with my very heart. On the life of Aunt Gropus, nay, the lives of all citizens in Rodworld. Bobe unleashed the knapsack of his charts and documents across the desk. The foreman stared down at them with a red face and pursed lips.
Very well, we shall see.
The foreman stood and strode across the room, opening the door forcefully and subsequently leaving. Milton and Bobe sat in silence for a few seconds until Bobe spoke. Oh no, this is it. He doesn't believe us. We shall all be crushed by the wheel. Oh, Milton, do not mention your fictitious wife and children. We may be fine. Oh, you are clearly far too young to have either. Milton stood up in defence, knocking over his stool. Hey, shut the fuck up, Craig! Bobe! I didn't see you coming up with a convincing backstory. Besides, maybe they do things differently in Stick City. You don't know. Bobe scowled at Milton. I was wrong to ever have listened to you. Oh, gods, you're a liar by your very nature. The way you bend the truth is most unnerving. Milton poised to throw his straw hat at Bobe, but the door swung back open. The foreman entered once more, this time followed by an older, hunched gentleman carrying a large telescopic device and clad in flowing robes depicting many moons and planets.
The town astronomer Fidis Hosis will use his optical ranging lens to assess whether you speak the truth or not, said the foreman gruffly.
Now, which way do you claim that the wheel is advancing from?
Queried the grizzled old man in an unexpectedly squeaky tone. Bobe stood up shakily as the astronomer set up the telescope on a wooden stand at the small window in the cabin. North! Just ahead! Bobe quickly checked his timepiece and his notes. By now the wheel should be clearly visible amongst the northern mountains. The 3 stood in silence as the astronomer adjusted the various lenses and apertures on his scope and bent down to look through. Criminy! The lad is right! Oh, I see it right there on the horizon! The old man backed away from the telescope, having turned a shade of white. In all my years, I The foreman grabbed the astronomer.
Check again! Maybe it was a spot on the lens!
No, there's no mistaking it! The wheel is real! The wheel is real! By the rods, we're all to die! The astronomer fled from the room, arms flailing wildly. The foreman turned to Bobe and Milton with wild eyes.
Right! You two! I don't know what you've done or how you've done it, but I'm holding you personally responsible for this! You better have some way of getting us out of this mess!
Bobe grinned in elation. It's true! All my research is all true! For months I've planned this very moment. We must head out to the mines. We have just enough time to evacuate the populace and batten down for the wheel's approach. Milton spoke up. No need. I have a much better idea. The foreman turned angrily.
Go on then.
Well, where I come from, there's this game called Skate 3, and it's all about wheels and gravity and stuff. I propose that you rally up your men and we build a colossal ramp. The wheel will roll into the valley and simply go up the ramp and into the air, completely missing Rodworld and landing a bit farther away. It's literally foolproof. The foreman stroked his bushy grey beard while Bobe scowled at Milton.
It might just work. As much as I hate to say it, I like the sound of it. I can see it now. It'll be 60 foot tall and comprised of a variety of beams, mostly spruce and oak for the foremost support, and perhaps something stronger for the back foundations.
The foreman sat down and began sketching onto the back of one of Bobe's charts. Uncle, it will not work! We do not yet understand the full velocity or weight of the wheel. Yeah, maybe you don't, Milton butted in, but I happened to see the wheel firsthand when it destroyed my home. I think I can say what can and cannot support it. The foreman continued to sketch.
This is fantastic! Just fantastic! No one will ever doubt my craft again. This will be the greatest construction in all of Rodworld!
Uncle, please, listen to me, pleaded Bobe. We have only an hour and 10 minutes before the wheel is here. There's simply not enough time to build such a...
With all 220 of my men on the job, there is nothing that cannot be built. Now away from here, you two. The Board of Suspension has a ramp to erect!
For the next hour or so, Milton and Bobe sat at the window of the office watching the foreman and his many men scurrying around in the valley below, lifting colossal beams and planks of wood from one side to another. By mid-evening, the shell of the gigantic ramp had been constructed, and by sundown it was complete. A monstrous wooden wonder, its 60-foot steep curve enough to make even the deadliest of death slides tremble. The exhausted workmen stood around it, staring to the north, and sure enough, there it was, the wheel of Fortitude, already on its course of utter demolition. Milton thrust open a door in the office that led to a balcony, affording a much better view. Oh my God, it's huge! Bobe rushed out to likewise gaze upon its might. It is but 5 minutes away! Oh, we are surely doomed! Milton looked at the huge black shape that slowly rolled towards them, flattening forests and hills as it ploughed through the landscape. Oh, the ramp doesn't really look wide enough, actually. The men in the valley had clearly realised this already, and were quickly fleeing the scene. All around the valley, the cries and screams of the townsfolk could be heard, slowly being muffled by the huge rumbling of the earth beneath them as the wheel drew closer. Bobe turned on Milton suddenly. You fool! Oh, look what you've done! All the townsfolk barely have enough time to flee to the mines. We're all as good as dead! Milton began to panic. Hey now, it's going to work. Just wait and see. Remember the phrase. Just do it! Milton stepped back as Bobe withdrew a sharpened splint of wood from one of his satchels. I don't want to have to do this, Milton, but you brought me to it! Bobe lunged forwards, but Milton dodged. Bird, help me! Cried Milton, unsheathing his own bayonet. Do that thing you did to the old woman! Bobe stared wide-eyed, screaming over the noise from the oncoming wheel. What? It was you? You were the attacker? You tried to kill my aunt! Bobe lunged forth again, his face red with rage, but the bird swooped out of Milton's sleeve and shot a jet of sizzling white energy at him before he could make contact.
The bird is here to save the day! Wahoo, ya yip and a hip hooray!
Bobe fell back, completely paralysed apart from his eyes, which moved around rapidly. Milton stood over him anxiously. Look, Bobe, I'm really sorry about all this. I really didn't mean for it to end this way. Look, you can even have your hat back. Milton took off the big straw hat and placed it over Bobe's petrified face. He paused to see that the wheel was now far too close for comfort, having blocked out the sun completely and cast the entire valley in shadow. Milton ran back inside and out through the door to the waiting area in the town hall. He looked around to see if he could see the receptionist girl, but she had obviously sought cover elsewhere. Milton cursed to himself that he had not left sooner and saved her, maybe even bringing her back to Earth with him. Fuck, I gotta get out of here. Milton felt the ground begin to shake, and many wooden ornaments began to fall off the walls as he exited the hall. This place is gonna blow any second! He ran down the steps and caught sight of the beast Theen, still tethered to its post, and wildly attempting to escape. Milton approached. Hey now, gal, I'm here. He patted the creature's mottled hide to calm its nerves. Milton decided that he probably needed the ride more than Bobe did, so he untied the beast, mounting it and shouting a brisk, "Hey!" to get her going. Theen shot off up the boardwalk, which rumbled and quaked as they rode over it. All around, the very foundations of Rodworld were shaking, its spindly struts and beams no match for the wheel's arrival. "Fuck, fuck, 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 fuck!" screamed Milton, holding onto Theen's antlers for dear life as it leapt and bounded across the rooftops. Villagers were scattering in every direction, clutching their belongings and heading for the cliffs and the mines as the shadow of the great wheel enveloped more and more of the city. "It's nearly here!" cried Milton, turning back to see that the giant turning wheel was moments from making contact with the mouth of the valley. "We're not going to be able to make it at this rate!" Milton pulled down hard on Theen's reins, hoping to increase their speed. Instead, the beast let out a terrified whinny and leapt from the walkway, where they began falling down into the chasm below. "No, you stupid animal! Not down here! We'll surely die!" yelled Milton as they plummeted downwards. Milton closed his eyes. This would be where he would die. Not at home in front of his computer, but smashed to bits at the bottom of a big hole. He winced, bracing for sudden impact. But seconds passed, and he felt nothing. He opened his eyes slightly to see an unexpected sight. The city of Rodworld, far, far below him. We're flying! "You're actually flying!" cried Milton, strong winds rushing through his hair. Theen dipped and soared on the current of the winds, using her tiny feathered wings. "All you needed was a little push at the last minute! Oh, this is incredible! I can see everything from up here!" Milton turned back to gaze upon the progress of the wheel, now safely out of its trajectory. It's the moment of truth. Milton held his breath as the wheel made contact with the ramp. In a second, the wooden construction was ripped to pieces and flattened under the wheel's immense weight. Milton bit his lip. "Yeah, well, maybe not." The wheel continued its path of destruction through Rodworld, crushing just about everything in its wake. Even the Big Beam Bridge, once a triumph in Rodworld architecture, succumbed to the onslaught of the wheel. Milton squinted, and thought he could make out a familiar figure of the Foreman, wielding a long wooden pole, flanked by the city guard. In seconds, they too were flattened to nothing. I mean, in retrospect, building an entire city out of stilts probably wasn't the best idea. They had it coming eventually. The bird shot out and flew alongside Theen.
"Master, do not forget your job! The wheel of Fortitude must be stopped!"
"Oh yeah," realised Milton, grabbing Theen's reins and steering her around back towards the wheel. The closer they got, the more horrifying the wheel became, its entire surface covered in sharp metal prongs and barbs. "How can I land on this thing? Where am I supposed to go?" shouted Milton over the impossibly loud grinding sound of the wheel. The bird flew up in front.
"Master, you must locate the heart! The central evil demon part!"
By now, the wheel had entirely destroyed Rodworld, leaving behind its trail of devastation. Milton could not make out any survivors, as it seemed even the mines had ruptured and collapsed from the inside. He adjusted the direction of Theen until they were flying parallel with the side of the great wheel. Milton's heart was racing. I don't know how to get in it! Milton suddenly spotted a small pipe close to him that was spewing out foul black air. "I'm going to have to jump in that, aren't I?" The bird responded.
"Sadly, Master, I must say, down the tube is the only way!"
Not wishing to waste any more time on this adventure, Milton leapt from Theen's back and down into the metal chute. With no one to steer her, Theen lost direction suddenly and fell into the side of the pronged wheel, being instantaneously torn to shreds. Milton had no time to react, as he was already shooting down through the tube. He felt himself twist and contort around and about, all the while getting covered completely in the noxious black substance. After having completely lost all sense of where he was, Milton fell out of the pipe and into a pile of smouldering coals. "Fuck!" he yelled, scrambling off the hot rocks and wiping the disgusting smog from his body. Milton looked around cautiously, assessing his surroundings. He was clearly inside the inner workings of the wheel. All around him cogs and pistons shifted and clanked, lit by a faint glow emanating from deeper within. Milton got on his hands and knees and traversed the length of a big, filthy pipe towards the light source until he came to a large grate below him. Milton looked between the bars of the grate to see that he was positioned above a figure seated in a large metal chair. The warm glow was coming from a huge furnace in front of the chair, which was being fed a steady supply of coal from various chutes flowing into it. "The wheel has a driver?" whispered Milton. The bird answered quickly.
Yes, master, the heart is alive. Now slay the demon that must not survive.
"I don't want to go down there. It looks scary,"
protested Milton. The bird let out a little laugh and shot a white blast at the grate below Milton, causing it to disappear entirely. Milton screamed loudly, dropping from the ceiling shaft and landing on top of the evil chair with a thud. He quickly jumped to his feet, ready to face the demonic driver, but the figure continued to sit in silence. Milton circled the chair to see that the driver was in fact a motionless skeleton, sitting hunched forwards, with its hands clasping a long periscope, which its skull seemed to be looking through.
"Oh well, looks like he already died a long time ago,"
said Milton, flinging his hands into the air. At that moment, the skeleton moved suddenly, turning its head to face Milton.
"Holy fuck!"
shouted Milton, caught completely off guard by the animated cadaver. The skeleton driver began moving its jaw up and down quickly and slowly rising up from its chair. Not wanting to wait around to see what it would do next, Milton unsheathed his Puccanarium dagger and pounced on the bony being, lopping its head clean off with a quick swipe. The bird blasted a beam of white at the headless skeleton, where it evaporated into thin air.
Thus is the end of the wheel of Fortitude. The sanctity of Rodworld is now renewed.
"Yeah, not really, though," replied Milton, prodding the skull with his knife.
"Holy shit!"
Milton attempted to keep his balance as the wheel shook and shuddered all around him. Without its driver, the ginormous wheel was no longer stable and was slowly teetering to one side. Milton began to slide across the floor as the wheel began to upend itself.
"Oh no! I need to get out of here!"
Milton suddenly remembered his unlimited and magical power of space transmutation. If he only had access to a door nearby.
"Over there!"
Milton spotted a small hatch next to the furnace. Using a combination of sliding and crawling, he made his way over to it and smacked his head against it purposefully in order to activate the power. The wheel was now at a 40-degree angle, and Milton had to clutch onto a pipe as he removed the grubby list of demons from his blackened pocket to select his next destination.
Number 44? Paul Pork? No, not that one."
The wheel groaned and a huge black conduit became detached, narrowly avoiding Milton as it fell.
"Okay, we'll go with number 3, Lord Syndrax. Plain and simple."
Milton wrenched open the hatch and pulled himself inside. The chaos around him slowly became more and more distant the further Milton crawled into the hatch, until Milton felt himself become weightless, and the crawl space around him opened up into a silent black void. As he drifted from consciousness, the only sound around him was a repetitive, muffled thumping noise.